This video was brought to you in part by Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll is the best spot to watch anime and is dedicated to offering me as well as you the best anime experience. Not only that, but they offer simulcasted episodes that are professionally subtitled on the same day it's aired in Japan, and they're all featured in glorious 1080p HD. So if you're interested in being caught up on shows like Dragon Ball Super, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and One Piece, you might want to go to Crunchyroll and check it out. By entering this URL, you can get a 30-day membership for free, so slide on over to Crunchyroll. With that said, let's get on with the video. What's up guys, my name is RBG and I'm back with another update regarding Transformers The Last Knight. As you've read by the title, I'll be discussing the possible origins of Optimus Prime and the location of the ancient artifact that I'm assuming will be the Omega Lock. In my previous video, I gave you guys an explanation why I had reasons to believe that the Cybertronian artifact that was given to Merlin was, in fact, the Omega Key. If you haven't seen the video, I encourage you to click away from this one and go check it out. Based on further digging, I may have some evidence to back up my theory even further. But before we get into that, I want to give a shout out for my YouTube commenter on my previous video that goes by the name of Bill Barclay, because they reminded me that one of the locations The Last Knight was filmed at may corroborate my theory, and that is the historical monument known as Stonehenge, which I have to admit I forgot Bay was filming on location at. Yeah, I know, how could I have missed it, right? But anyways, to this day, this Neolithic landscape remains enshrouded in mystery. Some believe they were used for various things such as healing. As a matter of fact, the term henge refers to any earthwork where there is a small ditch outside the embankment, as you can clearly see in the images being displayed. It's made up of mainly sandstones that form a ring, while the inner rings are made of blue stones, which are said to be the real draw to the prehistoric people who visited it. Where the blue stones come from is the even bigger mystery than the site itself. One of the main folklores regarding the Stonehenge would be its Arthurian history, or in layman's term, relating to the stories of the legendary King Arthur himself. I have reason to believe that this folklore will somehow tie into Merlin and the Omega Key's role in TF5. According to the History of the Kings of Brittain, which was written by Geoffrey of Monmouth, the Stonehenge was a creation thought out by the wizard Merlin himself. The actual healing stones used to make up the monument were said to be brought over to Ireleand from Africa by the Gigantes, or giants. The 5th century king wished to make a memorial for his 3,000 soldiers who died in the battle against the Saxons and wanted them to be buried in Salisbury, and at Merlin's advice chose Stonehenge. The king would then send Merlin and 15,000 knights to remove it from Ireland, where it had been constructed by the giants themselves. They were successful in their war against the Irish, but they failed in their efforts to physically move the stones. But thanks to Merlin using his quote-unquote gear and skill, he was able to dismantle these stones and send them over to Brittain, where Stonehenge was dedicated. So as you can see, we're looking at some possible plot elements that could tie in with Merlin's role in The Last Knight. If you recall, I mentioned that the Cybertronian artifact was given to Merlin by an unknown transformer, so what's not to say that that so-called giant that brought the healing stones to Ireland weren't actually transformers. As we all know, Michael Bay loves to harp on the conspiracy of human contact with aliens in the Transformers films. For example, the pyramids in Egypt were used for the Harvester in Revenge of the Fallen, and there were Decepticons located in the Angkor Wat temple complex in Cambodia in the Dark of the Moon film. So there's no denying that Bay knows how to culminate Transformers history with actual ancient esoteric history, and having Cybertronians fill in as the actual alien contacts makes the story all the more interesting. Speaking of alien contacts, I would like to divert your attention over to the first official trailer we got for The Last Knight. As you can see, this film will be jumping from different parts of history, and it looks like the Nazis will play a part in this history of the Transformers. I'm willing to speculate that they also have something to do with Stonehenge. Now, it's no mystery that the German Nazis delved into astrology, alchemy, psychic powers, and any kind of sorcery they could to be the leading faction in cutting-edge weaponry. They prided themselves in having the best science in the world, and every tool available was employed in their bid for world domination during the Second World War. One of their main secrets behind their advanced weapons was assumed by conspiracists and historians alike to be actual aliens themselves. It's said that the German scientists admitted that they were helped by quote-unquote people from other worlds. There's even conspiracy swirling around on how the Nazi symbol, the swastika, has alien origin behind it. Now, how I think the Nazis are going to tie into the Stonehenge is through a device they're developing known as the Diglaka, which was said to be a wonder weapon or a time travel device of some sort. And where was this device or wonder weapon said to be located? Under a circular concrete-like monument known as the Henge. Mainstream scholars believe that it served as a testing ground for Diglaka, or what most scholars are calling the Bell. Now, I'm not saying that the Diglaka or the Henge will be included in the last night, but I'm just trying to illustrate that maybe the Nazis had a similar history to that of Merlin when it came to the Stonehenge. The code name for developing the Diglaka was called Project Riese, which is the German term for giant, so what's not to say that this project wasn't given to the Nazis by Transformers as well. Keep in mind that these are just theories I'm looking at from different historical events. There are a ton of other speculations I've seen pertaining to the Nazis, like how the Autobot known as Warpath could be featured in the film around the World War II times, but let's not go overboard and start claiming it as facts because it's still unconfirmed if it's actually him. But moving on, I'm thinking that the Stonehenge will be the site where the Omega Lock is hidden under. If you look at the Omega Lock featured in the TF Prime series, you'll see that it bears quite a resemblance to the Stonehenge. Just look at the pillars in the circular structure. It looks like something that the Transformers would use as a secret device of some sort. That's just my guess. But enough talk about the location of the Cybertronian artifact or the Omega Lock. I would like to talk about how TF5 will give the viewers a backstory pertaining to the origins of Optimus Prime. This hint was alluded to in an interview with TF5's producer Lorenzo Di Bonatorova, sorry if I'm butchering the name, provided by Ethan Anderton via /film.com. He asked questions regarding the relationships between the humans and the Transformers, and since Optimus Prime looked to be more of a villain in this film, what would his role be in The Last Night? Bonaventura responded saying, "We will explore that. I'm not going to give too much away. Definitely, it's going to go back into the deep mythology of the Transformers and Cybertron, and how they were formed, and how the original Transformers, it's going to go into a very deep dive into the mythology is where he's headed." He continues by saying, if you go back in the mythology how Transformers were actually created, where did it start? Where did they go from being a sort of slave race to a sentient race? We're delving into the aspect of that mythology. So the characters that are involved in there are Megatron before he's Megatron, Optimus before he's Optimus, the Librarian, the Quintessons. There's a whole group of things that have to do with how, in a sense, the Transformers were birthed, and also with how they were divided, what brought up the division, and what were the jealousies involved. So as you can see, the writing team is going all out and treading on territory that sounds awfully familiar to Generation 1's. When I see keywords like the Librarian, I instantly think of Orion Pax and his origins, not to mention that Bonaventura talks about exploring the history of Megatron before he was Megatron. I think of his connections with Megatronus, aka the Fallen. I never thought I'd see these particular story elements implemented since Bay loves to play it safe, but we may be getting something that stays true to the pure essence of the Transformers mythos. I'd even go so far as to say we're getting something that will go more in depth. I mean, at this point, the films leading up to this one have written themselves in a corner, so it was high time for Bay to look at some of the actual source material. Speaking of Michael Bay, he recently posted a status on his Facebook talking about how hard the new writers worked to expand the TF mythology, moving the films in a new direction. He basically said what I mentioned in previous videos talking about the Bumblebee film in the expanded universe, like how they worked in a huge space surrounded by concept images of Transformers movies, comics, and cartoons. They even brought in Transformer historians from Hasbro to educate them on where the Transformers has been, so they could figure out where it could go. Bay continued on saying that he can safely say that there's never been a Transformers film with the huge visual scope and expansive mythology as this movie, The Last Night. He finished off his status by saying, quote unquote, "It's bittersweet for me. With every Transformers film, I've said it would be my last. I see the 120 million fans around the world who see these movies, the huge theme park lines to the ride, and the amazing Make-A-Wish kids that visit my sets, and it somehow keeps drawing me back. I love doing these movies. This film was especially fun to shoot, but this time might really be it. So I'm blowing this one out. It's a final chapter in a new beginning. Here's the writer's log line. The haunted will become heroes. Heroes will become villains. Only one world will survive. Theirs or ours." I don't know about you guys, but that was pretty deep. I know it seems like Michael Bay looks at this product as nothing more of a quick cash grab, but it generally looks like he's acknowledged his mistakes. And that last line, the quote-unquote final chapter and new beginning, Does this mean we're going back in time, or are we getting some sort of reboot going forward with the next installments? Who knows? I'm just curious to see how much the writers have fixed to get the series back on the right track. The Last Night could potentially be a huge apology letter to the fans who gave the last films countless opportunities to redeem themselves but ultimately failed. Hell, this could be what Days of Future Past was to the X-Men movies. Or Bay could just be pulling the wool over our eyes like he always does. I hope that isn't the case. If this film is going to explore the quote-unquote librarian or Orion Pax, this would be the perfect opportunity to see how he was reconstructed in the Optimus Prime behind the scenes. And does this mean we'll see Alpha Trion in this film? Will we even see Optimus' love interest Elita 1 in the film as we saw her in Revenge of the Fallen in the movie prequel comics? If they're willing to explore the mythos, these are the things we need to see. I, for one, am tired of seeing Transformers pop up in these movies and seemingly vanish in these sequels with vague explanations to why, but that's a rant for another day. But what do you guys think? Do you think that I'm reaching with the artifact being Stonehenge and potentially the Omega Lock? And do you think that TF5 will do a good job expanding their mythology on this film universe? Leave your opinions in the comment section below, and don't forget to like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. Any feedback is good feedback and will only help elevate the channel. I also ask if you guys are interested in more Transformers The Last Night related videos or just Transformers videos in general. You subscribe and follow me on Twitter to stay updated. But anyways, this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. As always, till all gamers are one. Peace out.